Ladies and gentlemen, you wake up every day and you're not fighting the world. That's a mistake most make. The real battle, the only battle worth your full attention, is staring back at you in the mirror. That reflection doesn't lie. It's not swayed by applause or blame. It doesn't care how much others believe in you. It only responds to what you do when no one's watching. This is the essence of existence. You are fundamentally in a contest with yourself. Not just the current version, but the potential buried underneath the comfort, the excuses, the fear, the laziness, the self-doubt. There's a future you waiting to be carved out of the stone of the present. But that's a painful process. It requires honesty, raw, unfiltered truth, and a level of discipline most are not willing to meet, not because it's impossible, but because it demands sacrifice. People talk about purpose like it's a mystical thing that floats down from the heavens one day. They talk about passion like it's supposed to feel good every moment, but the reality is much different. Purpose is born from responsibility, from voluntarily taking on the weight of what could be improved, starting with yourself. That's where it begins. You become dangerous not when you conquer others, but when you learn to conquer your inner chaos, and that takes structure. That takes the courage to look at where you're weak, where you've been lying to yourself, and where you're pretending things are okay when they're not. It starts small, that voice inside that says, just a little more sleep. Or skip it today, you'll start tomorrow. That voice isn't external. It's not someone trying to hold you back. It's the part of you that fears change. It's the part that finds safety in the familiar, even when the familiar is misery. And if you don't challenge that voice, if you don't override it with something stronger, it wins. And each time it wins, you lose a piece of what you could have become. What people don't understand is that greatness isn't explosive. It's not sudden. It's incremental. It's boring. It's doing the right thing when there's no reward, no recognition. It's choosing discipline over desire, repetition over rush, patience over praise. See, the version of you that will break through isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in silence, in moments where giving up would be easier, but you choose to persist. In moments where no one's clapping and you still deliver, that's the battleground. You versus the part of yourself that wants to stay small, that wants to stay comfortable, that wants to be liked more than respected. And it's not that the current version of you is worthless. No, but it's incomplete. It hasn't yet been tested in the fire of difficulty. It hasn't yet faced the full spectrum of what you could endure and still keep going. Because if you haven't walked through suffering voluntarily, if you haven't leaned into struggle with your eyes open and your back straight, then you don't know how strong you really are. And until you know how strong you are, the world will seem terrifying. But when you wrestle with yourself and win, you walk into the world differently. You stop being afraid of failure. You stop being swayed by rejection because you've already faced something harder, your own limitation. And you didn't back down. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from affirmations or empty words, but from victories over your own weakness. From keeping promises you made to yourself. From choosing to improve instead of making excuses. Every time you resist the easy path, you gain a little more ground in the war against mediocrity. Every rep in the gym, every extra hour of focus, every sacrifice you make for something bigger than comfort. It all adds up. Not just in results, but in identity. You don't just do hard things, you become the kind of person who does hard things. That's power, that's unshakable, because it's built from the inside out. There's something ancient about this. Something timeless. The idea that you are not yet what you could be. That there's a higher version of yourself, waiting, watching, judging every choice you make. And that judgment is sacred, because it's the only one that matters. It's not interested in your excuses. It doesn't care what's fair or unfair. It only responds to action. Did you show up? Did you push past what was comfortable? Did you stay consistent when no one was checking? That's the measurement. We live in a time where distraction is easier than discipline, where talking about doing the work is more popular than doing it. But all the noise fades eventually, and you're left with the truth of your habits. You're left with the man or woman you became through your decisions, not your desires, not your dreams, your decisions, and that should either terrify you or motivate you. because it means you're in control. It means your future isn't in someone else's hands. It's in your daily choices, in the way you respond to setbacks, in the way you demand more from yourself even when it's inconvenient. People look for shortcuts, for hacks, but there are none in self-conquest. You can't lie your way to greatness. You can't cheat the grind. You can't pretend to be disciplined. You either are or you're not, and that's a sobering truth. But it's also a liberating one, because if you're not where you want to be, you can change that. You can become better, stronger, sharper. You can build a character that can't be shaken by circumstance. But it won't come from comfort. It comes from confronting your fears head on, from choosing responsibility over ease, from saying yes to the hard path because you know the easy one leads nowhere. This isn't about perfection. It's about progression, about waking up each day and committing to outdo the person you were yesterday. That's the mission, that's the war, and it never ends. Because the moment you stop pushing, the weaker version of yourself starts gaining ground again. You've got to be vigilant, you've got to be relentless, not for applause, but because the alternative is spiritual decay. It's stagnation, it's a slow death of what could have been. People often walk through life thinking the fight is out there. That if they just had more support, more recognition, more money, more time, things would finally fall into place. But that's a distraction, a trap. Because what they don't realize is that the true struggle, the one that shapes everything else, is not between them and the world, but between them and themselves. That quiet war behind the scenes, the one no one sees, is where the real transformation happens or doesn't. It's the inner dialogue, the constant negotiations between what's easy and what's necessary, between comfort and growth, between impulse and principle. And most people lose that battle before their feet ever hit the floor in the morning. Not because they aren't capable, but because they're not paying attention to where the fight actually is. It's a dangerous thing to believe your obstacles live outside you, because once you believe that, you hand over all your power. You start thinking life owes you something. You wait for someone to come rescue you. You blame, you excuse, you rationalize, and in doing so, you rot from the inside out. See, the moment you identify the enemy as something external, you forfeit the only arena where you have control yourself. The one place where change is always possible, where improvement is always available, is within you. But to see that, you have to stop pointing fingers. You have to look inward, and that's painful. Because inside, you'll find all the reasons why you're not who you could be. The wasted time, the broken promises, the comforts you chose over responsibility. The truth hurts, but it also heals, if you let it. The real battle begins the moment you start telling yourself the truth about your life. The minute you stop performing for the crowd and start performing for the man in the mirror, that mirror doesn't lie. It reflects your work ethic, your discipline, your choices. It reflects whether you've been running from the hard things or facing them head on. The world may not know the difference, but you do, and that knowing, that inner accounting of who you really are, is what creates peace or chaos in your life. It's not about image, it's about integrity. About becoming someone you can respect when no one's clapping, when no one's looking, when no one's validating your effort. You don't get to greatness by avoiding yourself. You don't get to peace by pretending you've got it all figured out. You grow by getting uncomfortable, by seeing where you're weak and choosing to get stronger. Not because someone told you to, not because it's trendy, but because you want to be someone who doesn't flinch when life punches back. Because you want to know that when the storms come, and they will, you won't fall apart, and the only way to build that kind of inner steel is to train daily in the dark, to confront your doubt, to master your emotions, to do what's right even when it's the hardest option available. And this battle isn't something you fight once and then it's over. No, it's daily, it's hourly. Every single day you wake up with a version of yourself that's trying to drag you back into comfort, back into patterns, back into fear. That part of you is loud, it's convincing, it speaks in logic, in softness, in promises of rest and ease. But behind that voice is decay, behind that voice is mediocrity. If you listen to it long enough, you'll find yourself years down the road wondering how you became a shadow of who you were supposed to be. That's why the battle is so important, because the cost of losing it isn't just time, it's identity. It's your potential, it's the future that dies slowly every time you choose what's easy over what's right. People think the enemy is failure, or rejection, or loss, but that's a lie. The real enemy is surrendering to the weaker parts of yourself without a fight. It's betraying your own standards. It's lowering the bar just because no one else is holding you accountable. And the tragedy is that most people live like that for years. They convince themselves that they are stuck, that the world is unfair, that success is reserved for others. But if you dig deep, really deep, you'll find that it wasn't the world that defeated them. It was themselves. Their unwillingness to demand more from the mirror. Their fear of growth, because growth means discomfort, and discomfort feels like dying. But what they don't realize is that what's actually dying is the false version of them, the one that was never meant to survive. When you finally decide that the enemy is internal, something changes. You stop blaming the system. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop looking for heroes, because you realize the hero you've been searching for has been sitting quietly inside you all along, waiting to be activated. And that activation comes through choice. The choice to show up. The choice to do the hard thing. The choice to build when it's easier to coast. That's the revolution. That's the resurrection of your highest self. But it only happens when you commit to facing the enemy within. Not once, but every single day. There's no applause for this kind of fight. No trophies, no viral moments. Just small, consistent wins that begin to build something unshakable inside you. And over time, that internal victory starts to manifest externally. Your body changes. Your finances improve. Your relationships strengthen. But those are symptoms. The real reward is the person you become in the process. Someone who isn't easily broken. Someone who knows how to suffer well. Someone who doesn't need the world to be fair in order to thrive. That's power. That's freedom. And it doesn't come from books or speeches or motivation. It comes from going to war with yourself and winning over and over again. You want to change your life. Stop fighting battles that don't matter. Stop focusing on what they think, what they do, what they said. That's noise. Get quiet. Get honest. Go to the battlefield within and face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. That's where the breakthrough is. That's where strength is born. Because when you conquer yourself, nothing else can conquer you. Not fear, not failure, not adversity, because the greatest weapon you'll ever carry is the ability to say, I've been through worse, and I beat it, and that weapon is forged, not found, built in private, polished in pain, and wielded in silence. If you want victory, stop looking outside, turn inward. That's where the enemy is. That's also where the answer is. Discipline isn't about control, it's about transformation. It's the daily act of telling yourself the truth and responding with action instead of excuses. Because every time you do what you said you were going to do, even when you don't feel like it, you cast a vote for the person you're trying to become. Every small decision stacks. Every repetition reinforces identity. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become a stronger version of yourself. You build that person, layer by layer, habit by habit. And discipline is the tool that carves the new identity out of the chaos of who you used to be. It's the bridge between potential and reality, between intention and integrity. You can't fake discipline. It exposes you. Either you do what's necessary or you don't. Either you show up or you make excuses. There's no in between. The moment you begin to choose structure over impulse, that's when things start to shift. And it's subtle at first. The world doesn't notice. You don't look different on day one. But something inside begins to align. Something starts to organize. You begin to trust yourself. And that trust is the foundation of identity. It's not about confidence. It's about congruence. When who you say you are starts to match what you do, that's when power is born. People chase identity like it's a feeling. They wait for clarity, for motivation, for purpose. But clarity doesn't come before discipline. It comes through it. You don't think your way into becoming someone new. You act your way into it. By keeping promises, by embracing routine, by doing the right thing regardless of your mood. Discipline rewires your nervous system. It teaches your mind and body that resistance is not a stop sign, it's an invitation. And the more you respond, the more resilient you become. The stronger your foundation, the more capable you are of bearing the weight of real responsibility. There's a version of you that only emerges under pressure, and discipline is the pressure you voluntarily apply. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's not restriction, it's release. It's what allows you to operate with clarity in chaos, to maintain direction when distractions rise. Without it, you drift. You become reactive, emotional, impulsive, and those habits slowly erode the core of who you are. But with discipline, you walk into your day with intention. You say, "This is who I am, and this is what I do, no matter what's happening around me." That consistency builds not just habits, but character. You want to feel proud of yourself, do hard things consistently. That's how self-respect is born. That's how dignity is earned. Not by achieving some grand success, but by choosing the hard right over the easy wrong in small, invisible moments. And over time, that builds a person you can rely on, a person you can trust. That's identity. Not a title, not a label, a pattern of behavior so consistent that it becomes who you are. And the longer you walk that path, the harder it becomes to betray it, because you've invested too much to go back. You've seen the other side, the weak side, the excuse-ridden side, and you don't want to live there anymore. Discipline doesn't make life easier. It makes you better, it sharpens you. It makes you dangerous, not to others, but to doubt, to hesitation, to fear. It gives you an edge because most people are still negotiating with themselves, still asking, "Do I feel like it?" While you're already moving, already doing, already building. That's the advantage. That's the leverage. And it's available to anyone but claimed by few because it requires sacrifice. It requires saying no when everyone else is saying yes. It requires being misunderstood, being doubted, being lonely, but that's the cost of transformation. You have to leave the old version of yourself behind, and that version won't go quietly. It will fight, it will tempt, it will rationalize, and every time it does, discipline is the voice that says, "Not today." Identity isn't what you say you are. It's what your habits say you are, what your behavior says you are, and you can't lie to yourself about that. You know whether you're living aligned or not. You feel it. That quiet voice that whispers at night when you break your word. That unrest that lingers when you take the shortcut. That guilt that follows when you abandon the hard thing you said you would do. That's your conscience reminding you that you're off path, and the only way to silence it is to act in alignment. To do the hard thing, to do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. You don't rise to your level of goals. You fall to your level of habits, and habits are built through discipline. It's repetition that changes you, not hype. It's routine that strengthens you, not emotion. Emotion fades, motivation fades, but discipline, when built properly, becomes automatic. You don't think about brushing your teeth. You don't debate it. You just do it. That's the goal. To get to a place where the habits that move you forward are so ingrained that they become second nature. That's freedom. Not the absence of responsibility, but the presence of structure that allows you to flourish within it. Most people live on impulse. They respond to feelings. They chase whatever's easiest in the moment. And then they wonder why they don't recognize themselves, why they feel lost, why they feel empty. It's because their actions are random. Their identity is fragile. Discipline anchors you. It gives you a center, a place to return to when the world gets chaotic. And when your world shakes, it's your rituals that save you, not your dreams. Not your intentions, your rituals, your standards, the non-negotiables you've built into your life. Those are the bricks of identity. Stack enough of them and nothing can knock you over. You want to feel different. Move different, think different, live different. Don't wait until you feel ready. That's not how change works. Start now. Start small and start with discipline, because that's the root system. the hidden framework that supports the external tree. You see the fruit, but it's the roots you need to strengthen, and discipline is how you do that, quietly, daily, unseen but powerful. There's no shortcut to this, no magic morning routine or perfect plan. Just work, just choices, just resolve. But that's what makes it beautiful, because it means you're not limited by your circumstances. You're shaped by your decisions. You become what you consistently choose. And if you choose discipline, relentlessly, repeatedly, you become someone new, someone who doesn't flinch, someone who doesn't quit, someone who doesn't settle, and eventually, someone who doesn't even recognize the person they used to be. There's a version of you that you haven't met yet, and the only way to meet that version is to confront what's standing in the way, not outside of you, but within. That's the paradox most avoid. They chase growth, they talk about improvement, they dream of becoming more, but they refuse to face the parts of themselves that are broken, afraid, or dishonest. And without that confrontation, nothing changes. You don't become who you're capable of being by hiding from your weakness. You become that person by dragging your flaws into the light and dealing with them directly. That process is uncomfortable, painful even. But it's necessary because what you're unwilling to confront, you're choosing to keep. Avoidance is a slow poison. It looks harmless in the short term, shrugging something off, pushing it aside, telling yourself it's not that bad. But over time, the things you avoid become the bars of the cage you live in. The lies you tell yourself start to harden into your identity, and suddenly you don't just have fear. You become fearful. You don't just make excuses. You become the kind of person who always has one. That's how identity is formed, not in dramatic moments, but in the slow, silent agreement you make with your own limitations. The only way to break that agreement is to confront what you've been avoiding. You have to face your laziness, your procrastination, your resentment, your jealousy, your envy, your fear of failure, your fear of judgment, your tendency to choose comfort over challenge, your habit of quitting when things get hard. Not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself, to strip away the illusions, to see clearly what's holding you back. Because until you see it, you can't fight it. And if you don't fight it, it wins. Every single day, it robs you of energy, of confidence, of progress. And most importantly, it robs you of the person you could have become. Confrontation doesn't mean criticizing yourself. It means being brutally honest about where you are and what needs to change. And it means doing something about it. Change doesn't happen through awareness alone. It happens through accountability. You don't just name the problem. You take responsibility for fixing it. Even if it wasn't your fault, it's still your responsibility to move forward. That's what separates the ones who rise from the ones who stay stuck. The ones who rise stop blaming, they stop waiting, they stop negotiating. They look themselves in the mirror and say, "This is on me," and not in shame, but in power. Because when it's on you, it means you can change it. You don't need permission to grow. You need to make a decision to stop running, to stop hiding, to stop pretending. The longer you avoid the hard conversations, with yourself, with others, the further you drift from who you were meant to be. And life has a way of revealing this slowly. You start to feel the tension. You start to feel the weight of your own inaction. You know you're capable of more, but you keep playing small. You keep avoiding the work, and that tension doesn't go away. It grows. It turns into frustration, into anxiety, into regret. Because deep down, you know the only thing in your way is you. The hardest battle you'll ever fight is not against circumstance. It's against your own resistance, the part of you that wants to stay the same. That whispers, "It's good enough." That says, "At least you're not as bad as them." That part is clever. It's persuasive. It uses logic to keep you locked in mediocrity. But logic isn't always truth. Truth is uncomfortable. Truth is challenging. Truth is what tells you you could be more, but you're not because you're scared. That voice hurts to hear, but it's the only one that can set you free. When you finally face yourself, really face yourself, there's a shift. You stop trying to change the world to fit your comfort, and you start changing yourself to fit your vision. You stop trying to avoid difficulty, and you start chasing it because you understand that struggle is the path to strength. Every challenge you confront adds a brick to the foundation of your character. Every time you resist the urge to quit, you build the kind of identity that can't be shaken. Not by failure, not by loss, not by rejection, because you've already faced the worst parts of yourself and you didn't run. There's no shortcut here, no easy way around it. You have to go through it, through the insecurity, through the discomfort, through the discipline, through the loneliness. That's the cost of becoming who you're meant to be. And most people aren't willing to pay that cost. Not because they can't, but because they don't believe it's worth it. But if you've ever looked in the mirror and felt like something was missing, it's because the version of you that could have existed is waiting on the other side of confrontation. Waiting on you to get serious, to stop playing the victim, to stop numbing your life with distractions, waiting on you to step into the fire and face what you've been afraid of. No one can do that for you. They can inspire you, support you, challenge you, but they can't fight your battles. That's yours. That's the price of transformation. You have to do the work, and you have to do it alone. Not because you're isolated, but because no one else knows what's holding you back the way you do. No one else has lived inside your patterns. No one else hears the internal dialogue you hear. Only you know the moments when you're lying to yourself. Only you know the truth you've been avoiding. And only you can choose to stop running. That's the moment of power, the decision to confront instead of avoid. It's the turning point, the day you stop reacting and start creating, the day you stop being at the mercy of your habits and start mastering them. And that mastery doesn't look like perfection. It looks like discipline, like showing up when you don't feel like it, like holding yourself to a higher standard when no one else does, like facing fear and moving anyway. Like feeling the discomfort and not backing down. Every step forward is a confrontation. Every improvement is born in discomfort. Every breakthrough is on the other side of pain. And the more you lean into it, the more you begin to realize that pain isn't the enemy. Avoidance is, numbness is, comfort is, because comfort kills ambition. It kills identity. It kills potential. The longer you avoid the discomfort of confronting yourself, the longer you live in the shadows of who you could have been. But when you do it, when you really face it, you unlock something, not just ability, but belief. Because once you face the thing you feared and survive it, you start to believe you can face anything. That's what changes the game. Not talent, not resources, not opportunity, belief, and belief is born from confrontation. You earn it, you build it, you fight for it. One honest moment at a time. The future doesn't respond to what you hope for. It doesn't care about how badly you want something. It doesn't bend to intentions, affirmations, or vision boards unless they are backed by action. The truth is simple, and it's brutal. Your future is being shaped in silence by what you do repeatedly, not by what you dream about occasionally. It's the decisions you make when no one is watching. It's the habits you choose when you're tired, unmotivated, and tempted to quit. People underestimate the weight of a single choice because they think change must be massive, instant, or dramatic. But that's not how transformation works. It's built on compounding behavior, and every day you're voting for the person you will become, not through your thoughts, but through your actions. Every day is a chance to become better or stay the same. It doesn't seem like it in the moment. One skipped workout, one late start, one more hour of mindless scrolling. They seem harmless, but they're not isolated events. They're part of a system, a chain. They echo, and over time, those echoes become the environment you live in. You start becoming someone who breaks promises to yourself, someone who doesn't finish, someone who talks more than they move. And the terrifying part is how quietly that shift happens. No alarm goes off when you lower your standards. There's no flashing light when you trade growth for comfort. You just slowly drift into a version of yourself that is further and further away from what you once imagined. That's the price of small choices. They either build you or break you. They either reinforce who you want to be, or they feed who you're trying to leave behind. And every day you choose, not once, but constantly, in how you eat, how you think, how you speak, how you show up. There is no neutral. You're always trending somewhere. And the myth is that you'll get serious someday, that you'll commit when it's the right time, that you'll go all in when you feel ready. But someday isn't coming. Ready isn't real. The only thing that exists is now. And how you treat it determines everything that follows. It's easier to talk about what you want than it is to do the work required to get it. It's easier to imagine success than it is to live with the grind that success demands. But the people who become who they're meant to be, the ones who stand tall under pressure, who operate with conviction and discipline, they're not lucky. They're not superhuman. They just made a decision to show up every day, no matter how they felt. A decision to make excellence a lifestyle, not a mood. A decision to act in alignment with their goals instead of waiting to feel inspired. That's what separates potential from results. Choice, intentions feel good. They make you feel like you're moving even when you're standing still. You set goals, you make plans, you post about ambition. But none of that matters if your actions don't match. The world doesn't respond to plans. It responds to proof. It responds to evidence, and that evidence is built one choice at a time. Get up or stay in bed. Train or make excuses, focus or scroll, build or procrastinate. Over time, those choices accumulate. They become momentum, they become identity, and eventually they become your reality. The future isn't this distant place. It's right now. It's built in moments, in minutes, in your routines, and if you're not deliberate, you default. You fall into patterns, you fall into old behaviors, and the problem is, those behaviors don't feel dangerous in the moment. They feel familiar, comfortable, safe, but they steal from you silently. They steal your time, your progress, your confidence, until one day you wake up and realize the gap between who you are and who you were supposed to be is massive. And it was built one passive day at a time. That's why urgency matters, not panic. Not anxiety, urgency, the understanding that every moment is a seed, that how you do anything becomes how you do everything, that discipline today makes freedom tomorrow. That sacrifice now builds strength later, that delaying the easy path for the right one is how you break out of cycles. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in one day. You just need to win the next decision, to choose growth in the next opportunity, and then again, until it's no longer a choice. It's who you are. Your future isn't waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be created. And the raw material is your behavior. What you do with your time, what you do when you're tested, what you tolerate from yourself. You don't attract the life you want. You build the life you're willing to work for, and the currency is discipline. Every skipped shortcut, every early morning, every sacrifice, every moment of saying no to something that offers quick relief but long-term cost, that's the construction of a new future, one that doesn't just happen to you, but one you've deliberately built through sweat and will. The truth is, your life right now is a reflection of past choices, and your future will reflect the ones you make from here forward, that can either be intimidating or empowering, depending on how honest you're willing to be. If your days are full of intentions but empty of action, it's time to change that. If your dreams are big but your habits are small, it's time to close the gap, because no one is coming to force you to rise. No one is going to make the choices for you. That's your job, your duty, and it starts right now, not when it's easier, not when it's more convenient, but now. There's something deeply powerful about knowing that you are in control, that you are both the architect and the builder of your future, that with enough consistency, enough grit, enough focus, you can change not just your results, but who you are. You can become someone that doesn't just wish, but wins. Someone who doesn't just start, but finishes. Someone who doesn't just talk about potential, but proves it. And that kind of transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. The kind that doesn't waver when emotions shift. The kind that chooses what's right over what's easy, not once, but over and over again. So the question is simple. What will you choose today? Will you act in alignment with your goals, or will you settle for another day of delay? Will you take the hard step forward, or stay stuck in patterns that keep you small? Because your future is listening, and it's not moved by what you say, it's shaped by what you do.